Ben Franklin families, Mrs. Skrupa here, and this week we're going to learn about artist Georgia O'Keeffe, and we're going to focus on her large painted flowers that she created, and we're going to focus mostly on the poppy flower, which during this time of Memorial Day is used as a symbol of remembrance of those that have lost their lives fighting for our country. So let's learn a little bit about Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe was an American artist born in 1887. At an early age, she knew she wanted to be an artist. She worked very hard and became well known for her paintings of sunsets and nature, but she mostly became famous for her enlarged floral paintings, such as the poppies. So today, in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe, we are going to recreate the poppy flower. We're going to make a nice large drawing and then we'll paint it. And I have this here so you can see up close. This is made out of paper. It was given to me over the weekend for us to remember the soldiers that have lost their life protecting our country during Memorial Day, so we can remember them. So it's a remembrance flower. And you can see here that there are these beautiful red petals. Sometimes they're reddish, sometimes they're a little orangey. And you have in the middle here this center that's kind of a blackish, and sometimes it's mixed with a little bit of green in the middle, creating that center part of the flower. So you can see all the different layers. We're going to recreate that today, and here's a sample I have from working before with my poppy, nice and large, just like Georgia O'Keeffe would paint hers. And you can see all these different organic shapes that are here, created through wavy lines connected to create those shapes. And using that reddish and orangey kind of colors, and then adding some little details with some mixing of other colors, which I'll show you, to make it look like a little more of a 3D object. So for this project today, what you're going to need is to start with some white paper, a pencil, eraser in case you make some mistakes as you're drawing, and then if you have a Sharpie or black paint, you can use that, or a regular permanent kind of marker, and any kind of paints you have. If you have tempera paints, acrylic paints, watercolor paints, all of those would work fine for what we're doing. Okay, so let's get started with drawing. We're going to start by drawing our organic shapes to create this outline and the inside of the petals of our poppy flower. So what we're going to do to be just like Georgia O'Keeffe and draw large to fill our paper, you're going to draw an organic shape. So it's going to be these wavy lines. Okay, you don't want it to be pointy, because if you look at the actual flower, it's nice soft edges, no points, all curved, nice and wavy going around the edge. And it's going to create this circular oval shape, and you're going to do it nice and large so it fills the paper as best as you can. So let me start here. I'm just going to take my pencil and go all the way around, making this nice wavy shape. Okay, so this nice organic shape. Then I'm going to go in and move in a little bit into the center, and I'm going to repeat that same idea of this organic shape and with the wavy lines, and just go like this, and we're going to create those petals again. So you can see we're starting to create that roundness of these petals overlapping into our drawing. We're going to do it one more time, a little bit smaller in the middle. Okay, and it can be more of just like a blob. It doesn't have to be so much of a wavy line, because this part here is actually going to become the center part when we go to paint and add the colors. So for right now, we are done with the drawing. What you're going to do next is get a black Sharpie, or if you have a black paint, and you're going to trace over all of these lines that you just created to create that outline. And then we'll get our paints, either watercolors, tempera, acrylics, whatever you have, and we'll use those paints to fill in to create the details of our poppy flower. Now that I have everything traced with the black Sharpie, I am ready to paint. For this one, I'm going to use my watercolor paints. The one that I showed you that I had created previously, I did with acrylic paint. So you'll be able to see this one, at the end, the difference between that one with the acrylic paint and this one I'm going to do with the watercolor paints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this part and this part. So the outline area first that we did first, these petals and this petal. I'm going to paint those first. This part here, I'm going to not paint with red paint. I'm going to leave that so I can get the black paint onto it, okay? Since poppies are typically of reddish color. And then we'll add some little details into it with some other color. After you paint it, this part of the petals and this part of the petals, all that solid red, and then your center black, then you can go back in with some colors that are in the same family as the red. So those would be our warm colors. So that would be the oranges and the yellows of your paint sets, and you're going to add a little bit of details into this to kind of make it look a little more 3D. So using your brush, and sometimes the colors will blend a little bit as you're working if your paper is still wet, and that's okay. It kind of gives it its own original detail. So if I take this orangey color here and I kind of just add a little bit into it here, okay, like that. And while it's kind of mixing the colors on its own, with a clean brush, I can go back into the red and kind of let the colors just mix a little bit on it. So it gives a little more of a 3D effect to it. And it makes it look a little more interesting and not so flat as you're working on your flower. Okay, it gives it some life. So I finished painting with my watercolor paints for this poppy flower, and you can see, as if you were working with watercolors and as I was working with watercolors, when you put another color on top of the wet paint, it starts to kind of blend on its own. It makes these nice different new colors that you are creating that still go with the poppy of their colors of the reds, and you can see a little bit of reds and sometimes with the oranges and yellows. So this is what mine turned out, doing it with watercolor. And you can see the difference as if you use watercolor and this original one that I did that was done with acrylic paint, okay? I didn't necessarily draw any leaves. I kind of just add a little bit of green in the background. I can go back and I can finish this with painting it some blue. So you see that nice sky in the background. Or if you want to paint it all with green, you can do that. I'm going to go back and actually paint it with some blue because as I was working, my fingers were a little bit dirty and I got blue there. So I'll just go with what happened there and fix that up and paint the edges with some blue. Thank you for joining me today and learning about artist Georgia O'Keeffe and her large artworks of floral designs, and today being inspired by poppies in remembrance of Memorial Day. You can see here, this is the one that I did using acrylic paint, and then this is the one that I just created using watercolor paints, and you can see same type of flower idea, but the design comes out a little bit differently depending on what kind of paints you use, and that's fine. Use the materials that you have at home. If you do this project, I'd love for you to share with me what you made. Please send me a picture, and I hope you all are doing well. Bye, Ben Franklin family.